What's up, y'all? I'm out here at the range, as you can see behind me, on a bright sunny day. Temperature's not too bad out here, but it's swampy because it started so wet from all this rain. Y'all know it don't take but a little bit of sun to get it like an absolute swamp out here. But that hasn't stopped me from getting some testing done out here, and I've got one more thing on the agenda. It should be some really interesting 380 ACP. So we got the jelly contraption ready to go for one more test with a couple of chronos and 2 blocks of gel. Now, I have done 2 different tests in these. I've got them both on the back side, so a real nice clear alley up here on the front to get this one done. Of course, I'm staying with my heavy clothing barrier that's got the layer of denim, fleece, and 2 layers of cotton t-shirt. And for this one here, we're checking out some more 380 ACP. To be more specific, we've got the Fort Scott Munitions Tumble Upon Impact. I've had quite a few people ask me to test these things out. I have actually tested the 9 and the 45 ACP. It's been quite a while back with my older setup, so it may be worth doing a retest of those, but I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not a fan of this stuff at all. That's why I have not bothered to pick any more of this up. I just personally do not think it's worth it. To me, it's a fancy, overpriced FMJ. Now, I know it's a solid copper round, so it's not a jacketed round, but it's an FMJ for all intents and purposes as far as what it does. But I'm going to give them a chance to do something out here anyway. I don't think it's going to be anything impressive, but I'm going to let them do something. So again, what we got here is the TUI Tumble Upon Impact. It is a solid copper spun round. As you can see here, brass case with that solid copper projectile. Again, just a spun solid copper. You can see it's really pointed, so that's, I'm assuming, is how they get it to guaranteed tumble, as they call it, with just getting off of balance like that with that real pointed nose on it. And then what I'm gonna put up against it is just some good old FMJ from Federal American Eagle 95 grain FMJ, so the same weight. I did go with a round nose here, so I figured that's the best chance of tumbling, so we should get very, very similar results from both of these if my hypothesis is correct. Now, one other thing that's already very unimpressive about this stuff, this is a 95 grain projectile, and they're saying 940 feet per second from a 4-inch barrel. So 4-inch barrel, they're saying 940. I don't even expect to see that because y'all know how most of them are. They over exaggerate those numbers. So even if we hit 940, well, we're not going to, because I'm not using a 4-inch barrel, number one. I think 4-inch barrel testing for 380 is absolutely unrealistic. Now, if y'all watched some of my older videos where I use the EZ, if I was personally using a 380, I would use a longer barrel, because that's the only way, in my opinion, you can get some halfway decent performance out of the stuff. But that being said, I've got enough sense to know that most people who are running 380 are carrying it in these little old small so-called pocket carries. So long story short, 4-inch is not what I'm using here today. So 4-inch is what they got that out of, 940 on the TUI, and then the Federal American Eagle being the same weight, they're saying 980 out of a 3.75 inch. So more velocity out of a shorter barrel. I mean, that already gives it the win to me, because a 380 solid is a 380 solid at the end of the day. You ain't gonna do but so much damage. I don't care what this gel looks like, it ain't gonna do but so much from a solid 95 grain 380 round. But let me move on along from the ranting so we can get this done. Obviously, what I'm testing it out of here today is my Smith Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 with the 2.75 inch barrel. So y'all can probably already tell I don't have any kind of high expectations as far as performance from this stuff, but let's get it all set up and see what it does. All right, let's get us some velocities. I'm gonna do a 5-round average from each one, starting with this TUI first. Now remember, the info saying 940 from a 4-inch, so I don't expect to see that at all. Even if we saw 940, if we had a 4-inch out here, I mean, that's just under 200 foot-pounds of energy, y'all. This stuff just ain't it already. But anyway, we'll see what we get. If y'all aren't familiar with this lab radar, you're gonna get multiple readings from it. The large number is gonna be right here at the muzzle, and then you've got 5 across the bottom. The first one there is set for 3 yards, which is roughly where the gel is here at 10 feet. And then I've got them set for 10, 15, 25, and 50 yards. Let's see what we get here. 940 from a 4-inch. Who knows what we're gonna see here with this 2 3/4. 833, 837, 849, 843, and 831. Let me tell you what, I mean, I didn't expect to see what they were claiming 940 because this ain't a 4-inch. 830 feet per second is plumb pitiful, even for a 380. Let's see what the average was. All right, so our 5-round average right there was 839 feet per second. I will have to give it credit for being nice and consistent. We had an extreme spread of 18 with a 7.1 standard deviation, but if it's consistently weak and slow, who really even cares if it's consistent? I mean, I hate to just be bashing and bashing, but that's 839. I mean, 839 is just absolutely pitiful, y'all. I don't care at 839 and that kind of energy if it tumbles and twirls, goes out, boomerangs, comes back for another round. It's just plain old pitiful. But let me get it reset and see what the plain old FMJ does. All right, let's see what this good old American Eagle FMJ does. Now remember, this one was saying 980 through a 3 3/4 inch barrel, so we're still not there on the barrel length, so we still ain't gonna see that 980. I bet we see faster than that TUI though. Let's see what happens. It even feels stronger. 856, 831. Well, it ain't much. I spoke too soon. 847. It does feel a little stronger though. 837. And 844, so it definitely was a little bit stronger, but not much. Let's check out the average. All right, so sure enough, this FMJ is already outperforming this tumble upon impact. So 5-round average right there was 843 feet per second. The extreme spread was 25 with a 9.5 standard deviation. So again, nice and consistent. Consistency about the same with more velocity. So, I mean, already this tumble upon impact is just not worth it. It's just not worth it, y'all. But 843 here, and if you remember on that TUI, it was 839. So when I say a little bit faster, I mean a tiny bit. For all intents and purposes, these things are running the same velocity, so, and just about the same consistency. So as of right now, I don't see any kind of benefit, but maybe something miraculously fantastic will happen in the gel. Let's get all this stuff reset, and y'all know what time it is. All right, y'all, it's Tumble Wumble Jelly time. I'm actually gonna put a couple of each of these rounds down there into the gel. I'm gonna do 1 and 1 first. So I'm gonna do a tumble upon impact, then a FMJ, and then I'll go back and do another one just in case they start running together, because with these things, if they do start tumbling, hopefully they tumble in a relatively straight line so they don't run across each other or out the block. Well, let's see what happens. All right, that should have been perfect right there. Let me go see what I got. All right, I got to give it credit. So far, it's done exactly what it claims to do. It tumbled and got some good penetration. So let's see what this FMJ does. Let's see if it can match it. All right, that was exactly where I wanted it, but I think it curved out the side. Let me go see. All right, that one actually stayed in, but it crossed into that second block, so it confused me a little bit. Now, I will have to say, it's got me eating my words. It's definitely not the same performance, not even close. Well, let's give them both a second try. We're gonna do another tumble upon impact first. This one's probably gonna end up a little behind that one. I'm trying to find a good spot for them. All right, that should be where y'all can see it. It's probably right behind it. Let me go check it out. All right, that one was almost no good. It got very close to the entrance of that first FMJ, but I'm kind of glad it did because I want to talk a little bit about that disruption you're seeing. That being said, this one looks like it did tumble also and got pretty much the same penetration. So again, I gotta give them credit. It's doing what it says it's gonna do. Let's try this one last FMJ and see if it manages to tumble this time. I'm pretty sure that first one did not until it crossed into the other block. All right, that got real close again, but I should be separated. Let's go check his stuff out. All right, let's check out what we got down here. It definitely got messy down there in that last cluster. I put all three of them last ones basically right in the same spot. They're all completely separated, but it's gonna be a little tricky for y'all to see. I'll give you plenty of different angles though and try to describe to you what you're looking at. But basically, long story short down here is the biggest difference that I'm seeing right here is the control penetration from these TUIs. The FMJ, that first one that I sent, it went way down here. It's only about 4 inches from the end of that second block, so tons of penetration. The second FMJ, which was down here on the bottom, it actually smacked into this TUI down here, so I'm not sure how far that one would have gone. Probably would have gone as far as that other FMJ, just guessing. But as far as the TUIs, we'll look at the first one here on the top. This one looks exactly like you would expect it to look like if it does what it claims. It came in here, tumbled right there, kept on trucking after that in pretty much a straight line into this second block, and it is facing forward still about an inch or so into this second block. Now, one thing I want to mention about this big old piece of disruption here, and I've talked about this time and time and time again, but I don't think some people just still don't get it. This right here doesn't mean a whole lot, y'all. That is not, I mean, that gives you a general idea of what kind of disruption this round might be doing, but all of this out here outside of this main channel right there, that's just because it's in gel, and it doesn't matter what kind of gel. Clear gel, yellow gel, FBI gel, pig gel, whatever you want to call the gel. I'm telling you right now, it all does this. If you work with this stuff enough, you'll learn the little nuances and just the little subtleties of what is caused by actual energy and around, and what is just kind of a side effect of this gel. So really what you should be looking at is this kind of darker, cloudy-ish area inside here. It's going to be very difficult to show y'all. If you've worked with this stuff before, you know what I'm talking about. This just grows and grows and grows just because of the way this gel's acted. If you look at it first, when it first hit down here, and now look at it, you can see as it sits here, it spreads like that. It just completely spreads. And just think about it, y'all. We're not made out of solid, dense gel inside. It doesn't matter if it's clear gel, FBI gel, you want to call it, whatever you want to call this gel, and whatever type of gel you want to use. None of it is a one-to-one analog for what we look like inside, y'all. So you're not going to sit there and it's not going to spread out in a solid block like that. It just doesn't happen that way. But the main reason I want to make that point again is because when we jump down here to the second TUI, now it's very, very close to the FMJ. And I know some people are going to say, well, maybe it didn't tumble as much or didn't tumble because it was close to the FMJ. Maybe so. Maybe anything can happen. But I can tell you right now, that's probably not the case, because if it would have tumbled, it would have made a much larger area anyway. So either this one did not tumble or it just barely tumbled in pretty much in place, because it doesn't look the same. Now, the disruption right here, it could go either way, just because, like I say, once you work with this gel enough, you know the differences. That could be a tumble, but it does not look like a tumble to me, because you've seen before, if I do FMJ tests, you'll get kind of little pockets of bigger disruption. That's just the way it is. That's just the way this stuff works, and that's just the way it presents with a projectile going through it. So long story short, I don't know if the second one tumbled or not, but it kept on going through this block, and it actually stopped in the exact same distance as that first one. Now, it's a little bit further now because that FMJ smacked it and pushed a little bit, but you can see where it was landed, and it's exactly the same. So tumbling or not, it definitely has a benefit of more controlled penetration. But again, as far as anybody wondering, well, is it because they were so close? I don't think so, but I can tell you right now, I really don't care either way, because this stuff is not impressive. I don't care if it tumbles or not. There is not enough difference here, in my opinion, to warrant the huge extra cost. But anyway, finally, the very last one down there on the bottom, that was the second FMJ. It actually looks just like one of the other TUIs right here. I mean, you got that disruption, so it could have tumbled somewhere. This one doesn't look much different at all than these other two. And honestly, if you take this weird action away, none of them look a whole lot different from one another. But let's get some penetration measurements, and then I'll bring you in closer and see if we can make heads or tails of this. So the first TUI on the top there, that one stopped at exactly 17.5 inches. So in my opinion, nice penetration right there. The over penetration crowd, that's probably still too much for them. So a point I'll make here in a little bit on that. But So that was the first TUI. The first FMJ is way out here to 28 inches, so big time penetration right there. The second TUI, again, is exactly, or was exactly 17 and a half. And then this second FMJ is at 19 and a quarter, but again, that's after smacking into that TUI, so not really sure where that would have ended up. And here you are in closer. We'll look at this top TUI first. This is the only one that probably looks like people expected these to look like. You come on through here, goes into that second block, and then there you can see it sitting right there. And then these down here are going to be very, very tricky. If you can see those top two, the bottom one is an FMJ, the top one is the TUI. So if you look at that top one, see that little disruption right there, that's the TUI, and then in front of it is the FMJ. So again, that could be a tumble. I've seen tumbles look similar to that, but I've also seen non-tumbling, just disruption look like that. Follow them on through here. Pretty much the same story. I'll give you up underneath there. You can see a little bit of disruption right there. And then into this block, the TUI was sitting where you see that little disruption, but it just knocked it forward. And then that FMJ, you can see now it's got a smashed nose because of that. But then if we look here from above, the first thing I want to draw your attention to, that's that huge disruption you were looking at from a front angle. As you can see from the top, it doesn't look like much of anything. Right here's the biggest part if you're looking from the top. And that's actually the disruption. I'm telling you right now, all that big old fancy area, that's just a result of running these tests in the gel. But probably a more important thing to look at anyway is down below with those other three. One of those, of course, is TUI, the other two FMJ. But as you can see, you got very similar disruption from all of those. I mean, just different points in the track. So who's to say what's tumbling, what's disruption? So if you look at those, there's not a whole lot of difference in between these. The biggest difference, again, that I see is the penetration. You can see that's that FMJ, and that's the second block. I mean, the penetration difference is huge. And even with that FMJ, I would personally be willing to bet that would have went a whole lot further had it not smacked into that TUI. All right, let's check out these projectiles, y'all. Obviously, right here is the TUI. These are the FMJs. As you can see, that's that FMJ that smacked into the back of this TUI. I mean, it must have hit it almost exactly straight on. You can see it must have hit the base almost straight on. It didn't make any kind of deformation on these TUIs. That shows you the hardness difference between copper and lead. But other than that, this is just another one of them situations where there's really nothing exciting to look at as far as the projectiles. You can see the rifling marks, but that's about it. So let's get some quick measurements on them. As far as weight, they all started at 95. These TUIs, that one is 95.0. This one here, again, is 95.0. So those things are right on the dot. And then our FMJs here, again, they started at 95. That one is actually at 95.1. So obviously nothing lost. I'm sure nothing lost here, even though it got smashed. That one is at 95.1 also, so nothing lost obviously from either of these. And then we'll get a couple of quick diameter lengths as far as the size. You got 352 with a length of 569, and then 353 with a length of 571. And then as far as the FMJ here, you got 352 with a length of 442, and then 353. And then of course the length on this one's a little off because it smacked that other one, but you got 387. And there you go, y'all, the Fort Scott Munitions 380 ACP tumble upon impact versus just regular old FMJ. Definitely a difference here, but it's obvious what the difference is. I mean, these are just more unstable. So is that enough to warrant such a huge difference in cost? I personally don't think so, especially given the fact that these things are loaded so absolutely weak. I mean, these are just incredibly weak 380 rounds right here. You know, I'm not going to pick on the 380 again, but it's hard enough as it is to get good energy and good performance out of that stuff, but to load them weak and just to rely on some tumbling like it's going to do something major above and beyond FMJ is just not the way for me. So again, I think the major difference between these is the penetration, and in that case, for folks that are worried about the whole over penetration thing, the FMJ would be too much for them. But if you're one of those over penetration people, then 17.5 from this tumble upon impact is going to be too much for you also. So I guess long story short, what it boils down to is there is a difference here, but in the words of the great Mr. Paul Harrell, is it enough difference to make a difference? You be the judge. All right, y'all, I think this was a pretty interesting 380 ACP test to end the day with. I ain't gonna keep going on any longer about how I don't care for these things. Y'all know that. Y'all have heard me say it in the past on the other calibers, the other tests. What I will say is they did what they claimed. As far as the velocity, I guess they would do what they claimed out of a longer barrel. I think that's very unrealistic, but they're not the only ones who do that with the unrealistic size test barrels. But whether they're the only ones that do it or not, I mean, this is just weak energy levels for a 380 in my opinion. But do let me know down in the comments what y'all think about it. What do you think about the performance you saw out here today versus the FMJ? Is it worth it to you to go with this TUI over an FMJ if that was your only two choices? Let me know down in the comments what you think about it. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you reach down and hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you've got those notifications turned on so you get notified when I upload stuff. Again, a reminder to check out the affiliate links in the video description. Anything you pick up after hitting those links up, I get a kickback from them toward the channel, so I really appreciate that. Big thanks again to all my Range Gang members and every single one of y'all for supporting the channel. Got some really good stuff done out here today, and I've got way more planned, so stay on the lookout for that. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay prepared, and I'll see you soon.